I saw too that it looked really good. You had a tray of food, and it was like a bacon wrapped hot dog in a taco in a tortilla. Yeah, that's a Texas thing.
Yeah, Texas has the best taco. No, look,
That sounds fire.
Oregon has really good
fire.
tacos, and this is the difference because we always get into this argument like, where's the best Mexican food? Is it California or Texas, or the West Coast or Texas, right? They're different Mexican food, just like if you go to Mexico. Si vas al DF, el DF y pides una quesadilla, te dicen de queso. And I'm like, yeah, es una quesadilla. But in Mexico, no, en el DF, no. La quesadilla puede ser de hongos, de huitlacoche, de calabaza, sin queso. So every different area of Mexico has different styles of food. So if I come to the West Coast, I expect real good mariscos because you have Michoacán, you have Jalisco, you have Sinaloa, you have Mazatlán, you have the whole West Coast. So I expect excellent mariscos and really good tacos. A little bit bigger de asada. If I go to Texas, I expect tacos diferentes del norte de Mexico, de Monterrey, or I expect good seafood from Veracruz. So every area has just different types of Mexican food. That's the only difference. But the Mexican food in Texas is definitely heavy, man. It's a lot of brisket. It's a lot of jalapeno, big tortillas, big food.
They call it Tex-Mex, no?
Tex-Mex, yeah.
Tex-Mex.
Tex-Mex has its own flavor, man. And I tell you, like, there's a lot of food that we assume are like Mexican food. Like enchiladas no son mexicanas. El queso amarillo no es mexicano. For the most part, a lot of the food that we associate with Mexican food is food that came over here and we made it here. Nachos no son mexicanos. Nachos were made in Laredo or in Eagle Pass, Texas. So a lot of the food that we automatically assume is Mexican food is not technically Mexican food. It's more of a American flair.
Yeah, como el burrito tampoco. It was more of the northern side.
100%.
How about that Cesar salad though?
It's true story. True
Yeah,
salad.
that's Mexican though.
Yeah, but you don't know. I mean, people don't know that.
Yeah, I mean
Caesar salad.
100%.
Tijuana, no?
Yeah, it was Tijuana, and it was a salad put together real quick, and the guy's name was Cesar.
Cesar,
Yeah.
damn, that's cool. Hey, you know, I think I feel left out there. I'm gonna get a Topo Chico. You know?
You'll be part of the crowd.
We told you.
Nice to meet
I like that jersey, man.
you. Right?
When's that? What year's that jersey from?
I don't know. No say.
It's got to be the early 2000s or late 90s.
At least. Yeah.
At
Something.
least.
I don't know.
Le vas a las Monarcas.
Sí.
Pues de Michoacán.
Michoacán, yeah.
I remember when I was in California, there's so many people from Michoacán on the West Coast. We would be listening to la locutora, ¿verdad? And they would come on, saludos a los de Jalisco, saludos. Les mandaría saludos a los de Michoacán, pero todos esos cabrones están acá.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. La mayoría, ¿no? Well, muchos. Muchos at least in Oregon, at least that I know of.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because in Texas, there's not many people from Michoacán.
Oh.
As a matter of fact, in Texas, you say you're from Michoacán, you scare people.
It's really.
Yes.
Hay mucha gente de Sonora, Sinaloa, todo eso, ¿no?
Bueno, en donde somos nosotros, hay mucha gente de Tamaulipas. My wife is from Tamaulipas, porque está Tamaulipas al cruzar. Mucha gente de Veracruz, de Quintana Roo, y mucha gente de Monterrey, de Nuevo León. Bastante gente de Nuevo León. Yeah.
Porque yo una vez fui a Texas, estaba en San Antonio. And that's when I was like, wow, man, this is Texas. And it's cool, you know, I like it, you know. Yeah. The food, man, they add a lot of cheese, ¿verdad?
For
everything. Cheese. And I ordered oysters and had cheese. I didn't know that. I was like, oysters with cheese? Melted cheese, yeah. Yeah, dude, te los traen. I was like, wow. But y luego los jalapeno poppers, salmon, no?
Yeah.
So many, dude. I was like, what? Yeah, we met someone, they're like, yeah, Texas is known for adding cheese, kind of like Tex-Mex y todo eso.
Yeah. So I make, y a ver si los invito a una carne asada. I make armadillo eggs. That's what we call them in Texas. Y lo que haces es un jalapeño y lo abres y le sacas la mayoría de la semilla, pero le metes queso Oaxaca. And then you wrap it in bacon.
Oh,
and then you salt and pepper it, and then you let it que se toste un poquito. And then when you eat it with the melted cheese and everything, it's fantastic.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it was good, dude.
Huh, interesting.
You should go. The heat was, I don't like the heat.
You don't like
it was like 115.
115?
Yes. Dang. It was pleno verano. I was like, oh my God, dude. But I liked it. Then we went to the Alamo in San Antonio y todo eso, all the touristy place, the Riverwalk. It was cool.
Yeah. Look, if you can put up with the heat and the humidity, Texas is absolutely beautiful. Yeah. But if you cannot put up with the heat and the humidity, you get off the plane and automatically your glasses get fogged. As soon as you get off the plane.
He said not pointing fingers at anybody, but...
That's the only thing. And it's flat. Like, we come here, and it's like the mountains and the hills in Oregon. It's like, wow, this is beautiful. You go to Texas, you could see as far as your eyes will let you, and there's nothing in the way. It is all flat land. And when I first went to Texas, everybody's like, "Oh, you go to Texas, there's going to be tumbleweeds and it's going to be dry and coyotes." And I thought that was funny. It's like, that can't be. You go to Texas and there is tumbleweeds. And our high school mascot is the coyote. So there is a lot of that.
Oh, really?
Well, let me get this started real quick. Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. My name is Alan.
My name is Jorge.
And we're really excited to have our guest today. We have a very special guest. Shout out to our barber, Aaron, which recommended us to your profile. And we started looking through your profile and we're like, dude, where the hell is this guy is from here? And it's really interesting because this is, I don't remember if I told you, but this is one of the reasons why we started our podcast. Because we have met people like yourself that we just didn't know we had in our community. And we'll get into what you do and what you're about. But I love seeing our people just doing big things. We have very talented people in our community, and people just don't know about it. So we're really excited to get into this, man, and we appreciate your time coming in and hanging out with us for a little bit today, man.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Shout out to Aaron. Thank you, man. I'm going to hit you up later in the week. But really appreciate the invitation, gentlemen. Es un orgullo poder estar aquí con ustedes y compartir un poquito de nosotros, compartir un poquito más de mí y de la comunidad, ¿verdad? So I really appreciate the invitation.
Because we had a meeting and we talked a little bit, and you told us a little bit about yourself. But we'll start from the beginning, so because I want people to know who you are and how you started and how you kind of grew up and kind of the adversity that you had to go through. Because I'm sure a lot of people have very similar stories to what you had to go through. So where are you from? Where did you grow up?
Yeah, absolutely. So a little bit about myself. My name is Pedro Villagran. I am originally from California, born and raised in the Bay Area, well, in the Central Coast. I grew up there. My parents were migrant farm workers. My dad was undocumented. So I grew up trabajando en la labor, like a lot of our gente. I grew up tapeando ajo, tapeando cebolla, en el chile, en la espiga, en el jalapeño. So in a lot of different areas. Grew up very much in that culture. Grew up in California in the 90s, so it was a very different time, a very hectic time. Kind of got involved in a lot of the stuff that was happening. A lot of Mexicanos, the Chicanos in that area during the 90s. Eventually, I had my family, and I moved to Texas in 1998. Then I spent about 20-some-odd years in Texas. Got into working for corporate America, got into an entry-level position at a company and worked my way up all the way into the corporate level, into the executive level at the corporation. And I've done that for about 20 years. I've been in leadership, and then I came to Salem, Oregon 2 years ago with the company, kind of still developing, still growing within the company. But it's been a very long, very interesting ride in my lifetime, right? Being that I come from migrant farm workers to where we're at right now, I've been to a lot of boardrooms, I've done a lot of discussions with a lot of corporate leaders, but I never forget que pase lo que pase, soy el hijo de un pobre mexicano de campo.
So you said you grew up in Northern California in the 90s. What was it like growing up in the 90s in Northern California? And what part of Northern California?
Absolutely. I'm from a small town in the South Bay, south of San Jose, California. It's called Gilroy. It's a very, it's a farming community. It's right outside of Silicon Valley. Growing up in the 90s in California as a Mexican-American, we're first generation. I'm first generation. It was a different time. It was a time when we were really establishing ourselves and our identity. A lot of us were really into the movimiento and helping each other out in la causa. The thing is, the neighborhood that I grew up, like a lot of the neighborhoods of people that grew up in that area, was a neighborhood that was, on the wrong side of town. It was proverbially on the wrong side of the tracks. So I grew up very influenced by the neighborhood that I grew up with. So there was a lot of drugs, there was a lot of violence, there was a lot of gangs, and that kind of became our lifestyle. I think a lot of times, especially in that time, a lot of Mexican Americans, a lot of Mexicanos that were growing up in California, we were what's called latchkey children. You would come home from school, your parents were working, so you would go automatically into your house, lock the door, and really not pay attention. I never saw my dad a lot. My dad worked all the time, 7 days a week. Trabajaba en el campo, manejaba tractores, sorteadoras, different types of very physical labor. So we were really raising ourselves. It was me and my two younger brothers. So I spent a lot of time with them. My mom worked in una sorteadora, una nueceria. They used to do nueces, walnuts in Morgan Hill, California. And then after work, she would go do side jobs and side gigs. So I got really heavily influenced by the neighborhood that I grew up with, right? And there was a lot of homeboys in the neighborhood. I used to like to go to the park and play handball and hang out with them. But that kind of became my lifestyle for a long time because it became my family. It became my home away from home. And I was good at it. I like doing that. I like that lifestyle for a long time.
¿Qué te decía tu mamá? No, no le abres la puerta a nadie ni no contestes el teléfono.
Escóndete.
Escóndete.
No le contestes el teléfono a nadie. Y si te tocan, métete en la de atrás.
Yeah, hey, okay. Your brother didn't learn that lesson, man.
My brother did not learn that lesson, unfortunately. But you're right. You kind of, and we all grow through that, right? No le contestes a nadie, no abres la puerta, toquen lo que toquen. Si viene, ni aunque venga la policía, no le abres a la policía. So you kind of get accustomed to that. You kind of that becomes your lifestyle. You become very guarded and very protected. But as a kid, I would still kind of sneak out into the neighborhood. I would still kind of go see the homeboys. Because you would go to school, right? And you're growing up with these kids that are kind of in the same situation as you. And you make a connection. And they're part of your neighborhood. And they say, hey, come, let's go play at the park. Hey, que vamos a ir a jugar. Vente conmigo. Let's go do this. So you kind of, that develops your family. That develops your brotherhood and your influences, right? So even though you're trying to listen to your mom when she's there, the neighborhood, the park, all that is kind of always calling your attention. And that becomes a part of your life.
Yeah.
So you said you're the oldest, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have two younger brothers? How much younger are they than you?
The youngest, well, me and the middle one are 5 years apart, and I'm 9 years older than the smaller one. I have an older one who is 9 years older than me, but he was already out of the house doing his own life, doing his own thing. So we didn't see a lot of him growing up.
Okay, got it. It's funny, I was watching a clip of Nick Diaz, and excuse me, and they were asking him, a reporter was asking him if he ever got bullied. And do you know what I'm talking about? And he started laughing and he said, me? No. He's like, I never got fucking bullied. He goes, I have an older brother. He's like, and people knew they couldn't mess with me because of my older brother. I just thought it was funny. So I'm like, you being the oldest, it was probably really similar if you were out in the neighborhood and stuff, and if you had younger brothers, people were probably like, oh, don't mess with those guys. Pedro's the older brother over there.
Yeah, well, it's real interesting because, like, if you ask my brothers to this day, they had a much more guarded lifestyle, right? They didn't get a lot of experience in that. And they're like, but we didn't grow up with that. You didn't grow up like that because I grew up that way. Because they knew you were my little brothers, because people stayed away from you, because I protected you. I kept you in the house because I could keep you in the house. I wasn't working. I was down the street, so I could keep you in the house and make sure people weren't talking to you. And to your point, people would know that, hey, that's Pedro's little brothers, man. Just be chill with them, be cool with them, man. Let them do their thing. And they went well. They did school. My littlest brother went all the way through school. He's got his PhD. He went to school forever. My uncle le said, ¿tú ya estás en la escuela? ¿Qué estás estudiando? ¿Para presidente? But he ended up getting his PhD, so very proud of him. But they were very guarded because of that point, because I took care of them, made sure they didn't have exposure, made sure the homeboys that shouldn't be talking to them weren't talking to them. So they had a different life than I did.
Yeah. That's a rough life to live in, man. Something usually happens for someone to kind of change. It's usually something bad happens to the person, or they have a baby and the baby changes their life. What would you say changed your life to kind of veer away from that kind of lifestyle?
No, to that point, my oldest daughter was born. Look, when I was in the guys, I liked the guys, and the guys were good to me, and I felt warmth in the guys, and I was good at that lifestyle. As a young kid, I went through a lot of different stuff. I went through different forms of abuse. I went through different things, and that made me very aggressive as a teenager, right? So when I went out to the guys, I was aggressive, man. I was assertive. I'll be candid, like I hated everything. Everything that stood in front of me, I was mad at. I was mad at the world. I was mad at anybody that would talk to me. But that aggression served me well in the guys because it got me respect and got people to notice me, right? So I grew up in that lifestyle and said, I'm going to do this, man. All I got to do is just follow orders, do my things, give orders to other people, control the situation and the narrative, and I was good at it. But then my oldest daughter was born. I wasn't around when my oldest daughter was born. I was in jail when my daughter was born, I'll be candid. So I didn't see her birth. And it's interesting because in all my daughter's birth pictures for a long time, she would always say, like, Daddy, but you're not in any of my birth pictures. You're not coming out in anything. And she didn't know because I would protect her from that because I left that life. I would say, no, Mama, when you were born, Daddy was real sick. And he was away. but you were his medicine and you made him better. And eventually he got better. So if you look at 6 months, 7 month pictures, I'm in those pictures because that's when I got better. But I didn't see her. I wasn't there. And I remember the night that that I was going to see her. Like I knew, hey, tomorrow I'm going to see her. I'm going to be ready for that. And I'm sitting in the cell, right? And I had a really good homie, a really good cellie that I'd been with for a bit, right? And he tells me, oh, he's Gilas. He used to call me Gilas because is the hometown I'm from. You got your nana coming tomorrow, right? I said, yeah, my nana's coming to see me. He's like, oh, you got to look good for her. Hey, man, let me shave you up. Let me do you up. So shaving my head, start talking about it. Yeah, you're going to go see her. It's going to be your first time. This is your first little girl. He was older, so he had been around. He had kids already. I said, yeah. He's like, hey, you got to be a good example, man. You got to be the good role model. And I remember he's like, I got you something. And I don't know if y'all remember this. I'm going to date myself. He snuck in some Aqua Velva for me. Aqua Velva used to be like this aftershave lotion, like a Brute 33 that our dads used to use. Like it's an old school lotion. He's like, here, man, so you can smell good, man. So you can smell for her. He's like, smell good for her. I said, yeah, cool, man. I remember I stayed up all night thinking about it, man. Like, is she going to recognize me? Is she going to know who I am? What is she going to look like? I'd only seen like pictures that her mom used to send me and stuff. So I was just real prepared for it. I stayed up. I remember I put on my pants underneath the cot so that they'd get pressed and ironed. Like I was gonna look good for my little girl, man. First time I saw her, and then I remember I went out to the visit and stuff, and I saw her, and she looked up with these little. And I have no contacts, so I can't touch them. But she looked up with these little chubby cheeks and this full head of curly hair, right? Yo pelón ya con tanto pelo. Man, and I felt dirty, man. I felt I wanted to die inside, man. I felt like, what's happening, man? Why is my little girl seeing me in here, man? This is crazy. I come from a really strong family. My dad was my best friend, and my dad was always there for me. Be it that he was working, I knew I could count on him. And the same thing for my mom. And this is my first visit, my first time with my daughter, and I'm disappointing her, right? And that became the night that I wanted to shift. That became a time where I said, look, man, I need to do something better. I need to start thinking about stuff, man. I need to think about what my future is because she's going to grow up and remember this time possibly or think someone's going to tell her about this and she's going to be embarrassed. And I didn't want that for her. I wanted it to change and I wanted it to be different. And that was the night that I said, okay, I'm going to put a plan in place. I'm going to start strategically looking at things, make things better for her. So, yeah, that was a pivotal moment for me.
Just like that. Mm-hmm. So you were talking a little bit about that cellie that you had, your homeboy. And it seems like he was pretty supportive with you and he was like giving you good advice. Was there anyone that you still recall that kind of gave you a specific advice that kind of changed that mindset as well?
Yeah. I actually had a really good homeboy, Güero. I'm going to say his name was Güero. But I remember one of the times I was in there and I was, because like in that lifestyle when you're young and you're a teenager, you're going through all that stuff, you're in and out. You're in and out. That was just a life. You're expecting to always run into problems. And I remember I was leaving one time, man, and I told Güero, hey, man, I'm on my way out, man. I'm short timing, man. He's like, good, homeboy. We'll see you on the outs, man. I said, I'll see you when I come back. He's like, what do you mean? He's like, yeah, I'll see you when I come back. He's like, nah, you're not coming back, man. I said, nah, carnal, like, we all come back, man. This is our life, right? He's like, nah, not for you, man. You're different. I said, what do you mean? Mm-hmm. He's like, no, homeboy, you're different. He's like, you're different. There's something about you, man. When you talk, people listen. Tú tienes chompas, güey. You think, man, you're different than us. Some of us belong in here. Some of us are going to stay in here for a long time. But you're different, man. I swear to God, man, if I see you back in here, I'm going to kick your fucking ass. I said, what are you talking about, homeboy? We grew up together. I've been doing this with you for a long time. Nah, bro. Not for you, man. I'm going to tell you that right now. This is the last time I want to fucking see you in here. So when you get out there, you go do good, man. Go do different things, man. And that always stuck with me, man, because that's a good homeboy that I grew up with. I grew up with him since I was little kids. And he's already telling me there's something different about the way you speak. There's something different about the way you hold yourself. Mm-hmm. People respect that. You carry sway. Use that as leverage, man. And that always stuck in my mind, man. There was always people that sometime or another would tell me something positive about myself. And I lived a world of negativity because you're growing up in that lifestyle. You're growing up by yourself. You live in a world where it's just pessimism all the time, and you see the glass half empty, and you that's just your life. But I remember those instances, and that one really stuck out in my mind. I said, all right, man. All right, homeboy, well, I'll talk to you later, man. Man, sure enough, that was probably one of the last times that I had any problems because I really started putting things into place, and I really started seeing that things were different for me.
Would you say that was the first time that someone believed in you or told you they believed in you, that you really believed it?
That's probably one of the times that it meant the most to me Because look, when you're going to school, and I'm not gonna say there wasn't people that were positive in my life and people that were trying to do stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't believe them because I didn't know them. I didn't believe them because I didn't trust them. Trust is important in that lifestyle. Trust is important in the boardroom, in corporate America. Trust is important in life. And if I didn't trust you, anything you told me, I'm going to take with a grain of salt. So there was counselors, there was advocates, there's people from the church, there's people from different areas that were trying to tell me positive things, but I didn't know them. So I didn't know if I wanted to believe them. So when he told me, this is a homeboy I grew up with, this is a dude that I love, man. Me and him broke bread many, many a time, man. We went through dirt together, we did a lot of stuff. So when he's telling me, I take it and I say, okay, there's something there, man. There's something that this dude is being real with me, and it's genuine and it's authentic. We feel the authenticity when somebody talks to us, and I felt the authenticity for him. So I took it serious.
With everyone else, you don't have that connection. It's kind of like an, como se dice, autopilot, nada más te lo dicen. Pero, I mean, I'm not saying they're lying, pero you didn't feel that personal connection. So.
Yeah, I think a lot of times people want to do what's right, and people want to make themselves also feel good by telling you positive things and trying to build you up. Look, and I'm not saying there's anything malicious with that. That's good. People should be like that. We need more people like that. But at the same time, when you don't feel the authenticity, it stands out. You know, we respond to frequencies. I wholeheartedly believe we respond to frequencies highly, right? And there's different types of emotions that emit frequencies and that let you feel things certain way. Love, anger, resentment. All those emit frequencies, and you respond to them a certain way. Authenticity emits it at the highest. They did a study. I remember I read an article on this. They did a study years back in a DeFreitas box, and that measures how people respond. The frequencies that people respond to on different emotions. And they tried love, and they tried all this stuff. And yeah, people respond very heavily to love, but people respond the heaviest to authenticity. When someone is authentic to you and with you, and you believe in them, your body and your vibrations respond at a higher level.
Yeah, that's right. You mentioned it last time. Yeah, I remember. Yeah. Did you know that, or?
I mean, you talk about that.
Yeah.
Now, you went into a lot more depth. But you've. It's not something that goes through my mind, but it is something that he's talked about that to me before in the past. But I think it's funny that conversation that you said that he kind of had with you, because or him saying that when you talk, it's a little bit different. Because I was talking with Aaron after we had our meeting, and as he was cutting my hair, and I started talking with him about you, and I'm like, he's a really cool guy, and I'm like, I usually don't get nervous around people. And when we had our meeting, I told him, I'm like, dude, I don't know what the hell was wrong with me. I'm like, I feel like I fucking froze. I just felt like I don't want to talk because I don't want to say something stupid. And then I just couldn't describe you. And then he goes, oh, I feel the same way. And then I'm like, you know what it is? The way I would describe him is like a leader, like a strong leader. And when he talks, like it just comes across different. And you don't come across. I've came across very few people like you. And I'm happy I got to meet you, because you're offering to help, you're offering to like mentor and stuff, but it's and the reason why I'm asking you questions about this too is because I feel like a lot of us grew up, first generation Mexicans in the States grew up in a very similar way, but you overcame a lot, and then I will talk about it later in the podcast, but you ended up being in a Fortune 500 company as an executive, and you were in very important meetings, and you still have tattoos, and I mean, you still have, your name is Pedro, and you have a Mexican last name, and you were still in those rooms. One of the questions that I had for you, and was, what did your parents want you to do with your life? Like, what was the kind of things that they would like tell you would, and that they would want you to do?
Yeah, so obviously, like as Mexicanos, we really push education. Like when your parents come from Mexico, and my dad was undocumented for years, man. So we lived in the shadows. We knew what that life was like. They really pushed education, and they wanted me to excel. They wanted me to do well. The problem with me is that I was very terco, man. I was stubborn like a mule since I was young, and I was going to do my own life, and I wanted to do my own things. So even though they pushed it at me, I didn't listen to it as much, right? I would tell him, sí, jefe, yo claro que sí, que voy a la escuela, que vamos a ser bien, ta, 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 ta. But as I got older, when I became a teenager, and then I got big, I'm 6'2", about 230, right? I hit 6'2", probably at about 13 years old, so I was already a bigger dude, right? And I carried a presence about myself, right? It just became to the point where I stopped listening to them, but they always wanted me to do something better. And I remember my dad would say, like, no, yo te mando al colegio, que si tengo que trabajar más horas, tengo que traer otro trabajo. I remember he even went and got his commercial license because he said, like, si tengo que manejar, tráelas para que tú puedas ir a la escuela, yo lo hago. But man, that's one of the biggest regrets of my life, man. Watching my dad. My parents got divorced when I was about 13 years old. So my mom moved to Texas, and my dad stayed in California, and I stayed with them. Watching him struggle, man. Watching him like want me to do better, and me just being a knucklehead and me not listening to him. But they always wanted me to do something better, advance myself, and get an education and just be somebody in life. My parents didn't want me working the fields like them. They didn't want me in el tractor. They didn't want me in la cebolla. They didn't want me in none of that. They wanted me to be somebody. And I took a lot of what I have, like and thank you for that compliment on being a leader. I took a lot of that from my dad because I saw my dad go through that. Like my dad even driving tractors, like the other tractor drivers used to look up to him and they used to say like, okay, dice Pedro, que va a ser Pedro, because that was his name too. So that always stuck in my head. You have to lead. You have to lead. And then I remember my dad, he would tell me when I was younger, and this always stuck with me is too. Oye, mijito, tú debes más que los demás porque a ti Dios te dio algo. Y cuando Dios te da algo, tú tienes responsabilidad porque tú hablas porque no puede hablar. Because he would see like the other Mexicanos. Look, one of the most beautiful things about our cultura is the humility we carry in our cultura, being humble. It's also one of the biggest things that holds us back. And my dad would even see that. El mexicano se queda callado. He would always say, te mamas un huevo. Te dicen algo, te mamas un huevo, te quedas calladito, no dices nada. And we shouldn't be that way. If a man steps on my foot, I'm going to let you know you stepped on my foot. And we're going to talk about this. I'm not aggressive. I'm not going to fight you. I don't want to do that, obviously. But I want you to let you know. You will respect me. Yeah. And I think that's something that always stuck with me, too, as well. So my dad always instilled those leadership, the education pieces. It was just a bigger struggle for me at that time.
Yeah. Would you say that's learned? You can learn that? Or is that just in you?
The leadership?
That like assertiveness.
Oh, yeah. I think you can learn that, but you got to be willing to make the changes. Look, one of the hardest things in life is change. We get comfortable because we get used to it. There's something for us that we seek a beauty and comfort. We seek a warmth and comfort, right? And coming home and like, ¿sabes qué? I'm going to turn on la TV. I'm going to drink a chela. We're going to watch some football, un partido. We're going to hang out. We're going to do a carne asada. But we don't push. We don't push because it feels uncomfortable for us, right? It makes us feel like we don't want to do something. Like we don't seek it. You have to want to seek the change, but you can definitely learn the assertiveness. The first thing you got to do is find the value in yourself and understand the value that you bring. A lot of times somos tan humildes que los quedamos calladitos y no los hallamos valor en nuestro ser, en lo que somos, right? But I think as a learned responsibility, we definitely can.
I agree with it a lot. I think a lot of it has to do, and I don't think it's just our culture. Pienso que es muchas culturas, sino que this is what we know. Por eso es quédate callado, no digas nada. Oh, pues es ser humilde. And there's a lot of things about our culture that helps us, and some things that, you know, if we were taught different, that would be a lot better. But I mean, I agree with you 100%. I've always been a big human behavior is, right? Y por qué lo hacemos, y de dónde viene esto, y por qué actuamos porque actuamos, and you have to go back past generations, you know, especially first generations, and why our parents were like that, y así se la llevan. But it's very interesting, though.
I agree with you. I think generationally we've been cursed with that.
Yeah.
A lot of times I've heard it referred to as the peon mentality, la mentalidad de un peon.
Yeah.
We have that, right, generationally, because that's what we've been told our value is that. If you're a Latino, especially if you're a Mexicano, you have that mentality. You look at the last 500 years of our culture, and a lot of the times it is la reconquista. It is the property that was taken from us, el hacendero. It was more of a derogatory term towards us, right? Having that mentality. If you look at the last 2,000 years of our culture, it's different. Look at everything that we brought in the terms of math, in science, and building, and everything else. But we only identify for some reason with la mentalidad del peón, where we're going to be calladitos, le vamos a hacer caso al hacendero. No hagas ruido porque te sacan. No digas nada porque te sacan. But we got to kind of break away from that. And to your point, it's in a lot of cultures, specifically for us, I think it's to a degree, it's part of who we are, how we grew up.
Yeah. No, but see. Yeah. I say so.
So, what was your first job in, like? Would you consider it sales that you did? Is that what you would consider it
Yeah.
before you got to the executive level?
Yeah, I would consider it to a degree sales. It was more like customer service, customer sales. I kind of went in entry level. I had been working at another company for years, for like 6 years, and I grew up in that company. I did extremely well. It's a big company as well. But then we hit like that glass ceiling where I felt like I wasn't growing. I have a lot of tattoos on my head, very visible stuff. I felt like, okay, this is it. I'm limited here. There's not going to be growth. So I went to another company with an opportunity. My brother was working at it, and he says, hey, come over to the company. It's a great company. You're going to do well. It's customer service, sales. You have a knack for this. I said, absolutely. Let me try it out. So I went over to the company, and just from the beginning, I excelled. I was the one that pushed myself. I wanted more. I remember my first supervisor came to me and he said, hey, man, I'm going to put an action plan together for you. I said, okay, let's talk about it. He's like, look, I need you to do this, this, this. And he gave me like 4 or 5 metrics. I said, really cool, man. Okay, so all I got to do is give this to you? He's like, yeah, if you hit this for me, I'm going to take care of you. I said, cool. So I went immediately to my desk and I started writing an action plan for him. I said, this is my action plan for him. So I came back and I said, his name was Sergio. Sergio, let me talk to you. He's like, yeah, what's up, man? You still got time on your coaching? I said, look, man, this is your action plan that you gave me, right? Yes. Well, I put something together for you. This is the action plan for you. He's like, what do you mean? He's like, no, look, I'm going to give you A, B, and C, like you requested. If I give you A, I expect exposure. If I give you B, I expect opportunity. And if I give you C, I expect more money. Pay me, sucker. Like, I want a little bit more. Like, yeah, okay. Yeah, nobody's ever done that, but yeah. I said, no, brother, con respeto. Like, I can do all these things for you, and if I hit them all out of the park, can you do that for me? He said, I will fight for you if you can do all of that. So that's the first time, too, that for me it stood out like, hey, you got to ask for what's yours, what you want. But then you can't just ask and expect it, porque eres el más bonito, they're going to give it to you, right? Or el más inteligente. You got to be able to demonstrate that you can hit it out of the park. Sure enough, man, I hit it out of the park. I did customer service for only about 4 or 5 months. And then I got a promotion. I went to a leadership role, and then it was just a leadership role after leadership role after leadership role.
Nice. Did you always have like that entrepreneur side of you?
I always had look.
On like the leadership?
This is what I had, and I think in the term now, and a lot of people use it, I grew up in hustle culture. So I had that in the background. Like, I needed to hustle. I felt like I wanted to do more. And whether it was a side business, whether it was at work, whether I was at home, whether it was with the family, that always stuck with me. Like, hey, you got to be grinding. I don't want to go home and go to sleep. I don't want to go home and watch TV. I want to go home and think about tomorrow. What am I doing tomorrow? How is tomorrow different for me? Like, we start to plan it. I do a lot of public speaking, and I go out to events, right? And I always ask this question: how many of us want to be successful? And you'll hear them like, everybody like hands successful. How many of us feel that we're doing everything that we need to be successful? Everybody. I said, really? Is your success your obsession? I think so. Yeah. If you hesitate to answer that question, you're not doing it. You're not doing it. And this is the thing I always tell people. Success doesn't have to be in the corporate environment. If you want to be the best parent possible, the best husband possible, the best teacher possible, the best football coach possible, the best soccer player possible, that's your narrative for success. And don't let anybody else define that for you, because we make that mistake. No, pues nomás quieren éxito en lo que ellos quieren. No. But your drive to achieve success needs to be the first thing. So that for me, and you can ask my wife, like, I lose sleep over it. I would sleep 5 hours a night, and I would be thinking about, what am I going to do tomorrow? How am I going to be better tomorrow? What are the things that I need to do tomorrow? And I was relentless in my approach. So to your point, yes, that's something for me that from the beginning I established, like, I want more. I want more. I want to get to where I want to get. And it wasn't a question of money. It was a question of the stability I could bring to my family.
That's good. Yeah, I think I agree with you with everything that you said, porque a lot of the times people tell you, oh, well, successful. They have their image of successful, right? But they don't know what you want to do or what your goals are, your personal development, todo eso. And I think a lot of people fall in that trap. Oh, well, you get distracted, te dicen algo, escuchas que esto, you hear everybody doing this, but that's them, that's their timeline, that's their success, that is their story, that's what they want to pursue. You can't, and then it goes back to comparing yourself with others. Dicen que es lo que más te daña. So,
well, and I think we make that mistake, and we see it in leadership, we see it in different circumstances where people are trying to catch up to other people. And they say, well, look at that person. They're all the way at the 90-yard line. I'm still at the 30. You don't know how you got there.
Exactly.
I'm 48 years old. I found the ultimate, like my highest level of success in my 40s. Some people get there in their 30s. Some people get there in their 20s. We shouldn't be like measuring ourselves against anybody else's life because we don't know what they had to go through to get there. Some of the people are born on second base. Some people are born, already getting to home. Some of us, and I feel I was born behind the dugout, like I was born back there. So my journey is going to be substantially longer, but that's okay. That's definitely okay. People say, well, that's not fair. I don't care about fair. I don't care about like, oh, well, things, no. Things are what they are. I accept them. I move forward with it. I try to make the change now. What I'm going to do, though, is make sure that the person that comes behind me doesn't have to start where I started. They can start ahead. They can start at a different place because I want to blaze a trail where they feel like, okay, even though we grew up similar, I know that Pedro could do it, so I'm starting off at least at home plate. I'm starting off at first base. That's the goals that we should try to achieve, not to complain about like, oh, things aren't good for me or it's too hard, it's too difficult. It's all fucking hard. It's all fucking hard. Every day is hard. Every day is difficult. What are you doing about it? How are you changing? What does your grind look like?
Yeah. I think everything is hard. I think anything you do, and it goes back to the thing, pick your heart, so.
Pick your heart. Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that because you do. Because anything that's worth doing is going to take a lot of work, a lot of ganas, a lot of ambition, a lot of drive. We could choose to stay home and say, well, it's because they don't like me. Well, who cares if they like you? Well, it's because I didn't go to school. I dropped out of school in 10th grade. I dropped out of school in 10th grade. I liked the streets, and that was where I wanted to be. I went back and got my GED. Eventually, a few years back, I went back and got my bachelor's degree. I have a bachelor's degree in organizational management with a specialization on international business because I wanted to get it. And then people say, well, I don't have resources. I didn't have money. Look, the number one differentiator between someone that is successful and someone that is not successful, it is not money. It is not resources, education. It is not access to tools. It is persistence. The ability to persist in the face of any obstacle, the ability to move forward no matter what the fuck it costs. But we spend too much time like, no, pues estoy feo. No, pues no me quieren. No, pues no puedo hablar. Estoy chaparro, estoy alto, estoy gordo. You find reasons to not be successful instead of finding the reason to be successful and to be the leader you were born to be, man. Because you got to push that envelope. And we can all do it. Candidly, I have seen people from all walks of life and all different things achieve a level of success that's ridiculous. Like I launched sites in Guatemala. I've been in places in Bogotá, Colombia, Panama, la ciudad de Tegucigalpa, Honduras, San Pedro Sula, all over the Philippines. And I have people that come from nothing and really put a game plan together. They put their action plan together. They start talking about it. They start visualizing it. And before you know it, they're head of country. They're getting these awesome titles and these awesome responsibilities because they put it in place and they stop making excuses.
What advice would you have for someone that is just starting off in a career, but they want to be eventually at an executive level?
Absolutely. Look, this is what I tell people, period. You got to do a couple things. First, you got to put some plans in place. And I always tell my people and I always tell people that I've led, put a 1, 3, and 5 year plan, 1, 3, and 5 year goals. What are your 1 year goals, your 3 year goals, and your 5 year goals? Your 1 year goal is your median growth and development. What are you going to learn? How are you going to improve yourself? What are the things that you are going to go after that immediately can just improve the status of your knowledge? Because that's what you want to do at a year. 3 is what's the next promotion for you? What is the next capability that you have in 3 years that you want to achieve that's going to boost your economic situation or get you closer to your big goals? And then 5 years is your visualization of your big money goal. What is your big money goal in 5 years? Where do you see yourself? What are the things that you want to accomplish? It might be a supervisor position. It might be a manager position. It might be head football coach. It might be a teacher of the year. It doesn't matter, but what are you doing? If you don't put a plan in place, and especially if you can't visualize it, it's like driving with your eyes closed. You don't know where you're going. You don't know what you want to accomplish. You're just, every day you're waking up just to grind. Every day you're waking up just to move. And that shouldn't be the purpose. So do the 1, 3, and 5. And then I tell people, very importantly, you should find one big mentor in your life and you should find 2 advocates. And you need to understand the difference between both. The 2 advocates in your life are people that have worked with you, that know you. They're kind of like your cheerleaders. They're the ones that say, no, Jorge's amazing. Jorge, hey, man, I've seen him work. He does great stuff. I'm a big fan of his. I would recommend it to anybody. Same thing. Alan is, oh, man, he has amazing hair. He works out real well. Like any advocate that you have is your cheerleader. Your mentor is the person that's going to come and talk to you and give you guidance. That's the person that you can come and say, like, hey, man, I'm having this struggle at work. I don't know if I want to do this. They're telling me A, B, or C. What should I do? And then that mentor is going to go back on based on their experience and say, look, A might be good because of this. B might be good because of this. C might be good because of this, and these are the cons for all of them. But then they let you make the decision. Because your mentor should never make decisions for you. Your mentor should only apply guidance. So seek two advocates and one big mentor. I try to be a mentor to as many people as possible because I know that helps out, especially to our gente. But you start doing those type of things, you're starting really to put a plan in place together that's ultimately going to give you success.
How did you find mentors?
I asked. I'll be candid. It was hard for me for a while, and then my wife was amazing about it. She's like, you got to find a mentor. En veces yo tenía el orgullo de ser mexicano. No, yo todo lo puedo solo. Yo no necesito nadie. Bullshit. No, we all need somebody. We all need somebody, man. So I just started reaching out. And man, look, finding your first mentor is probably one of the most uncomfortable things that you can do, right? Because you're going to call somebody and you're going to tell them, hey, I just wanted to talk to you. Like, I really respect what you're doing, and I think you're an amazing leader, and I feel like I could learn so much from you. And I just want to see if I could dig some time on your calendar, and if you wouldn't mind being a mentor for me, and just give me some advice, some guidance along the ways. And sometimes picking up that phone is the hardest thing you can do. And we always try to look for mentors in our line of work. Sometimes you don't need that. Find a mentor that's going to speak to your heart. Find a mentor that's going to speak to your brain. Those are the mentors that you need because they're unbiased, and they don't say like, oh, you want to do A, B, or C. They're looking at you unbiasedly. So pick up the phone and find that mentor. Reach out, send them an email, find a way to communicate it because it is important to you.
Okay. How many hours a week would you say you worked when you were working in the executive level?
I'm sorry, I'm looking at my wife because I worked all the hours.
I'm about to ask. That's where I was going. You know where I'm going with this.
I worked all the hours. I was always on. I was on 7 days a week.
You were on 7 days a week.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you manage home and life balance, or work and life balance?
It took me a while to understand that. It took me a while to get to that level. My wife will tell you. For me, it was different, man, because a lot of us as Latinos, we struggle with what's called imposter syndrome, right? Mm-hmm. We don't feel like we belong. We feel like we're different, like they don't believe in us. And I always felt like, I'm doing a juggling act. And one of these days, somebody's going to look at me and say, look at that guy with the tattoos. That guy's not an executive. That guy's not a leader. And they're going to figure out, he probably has a different background. And I was going to drop all the balls. So I always struggled with that. So what I did is I did external validation through my work and through my work ethic. That meant that I was pushing the envelope all the time. Mm-hmm. I remember one time, a long time ago, I launched a site in Tegucigalpa, Honduras, and they sent an analyst with me to go launch it. And I'm out there, and I'm working like 12 hours a day. And I remember the analyst is like, man, Pete, this is a lot of hours, man. Like, I want to go back to the hotel. And I'm like, 12 hours? Like, dude, I'm getting my second win. Let's go. Like, we're staying, dude. That site was running 24 hours a day at that time because it just needed to happen. So I'm like, I'm going to stay more, man. If you want to go home, go home. Now I realize, like, those are mistakes. You can't always be on the grind. You got to find an even balance. You got to find a way to make things happen. Now that I'm older in life, now I see it differently. Now I make a lot more time for my wife. Now we vacation more. Now we spend time together. Like, my wife's my best friend. We do a lot of things together. But you got to be able to find that internal validation instead of seeking external validation. And we find internal validation by speaking to ourselves. We need time to reflect. Now when I go work and I come home, and my wife will know this, I need 30 minutes to myself to decompress. So I come home, and for 30 minutes, I'll go upstairs. I'll watch something with sports, read something on tequila, because I collect tequilas. I'll do something that's just for me. But it gives me an opportunity to come home and then come home to my wife and say, okay, let's make some dinner, because I'm the one that cooks. I said, let's make some dinner. Let's do something together. Let's go to a movie. Mm-hmm. Folks, seek the internal validation, because that's the most important. Don't seek the external validation through your work.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that, but how do you know when you're taking too many vacations? Because this guy's already asking for like too many vacations.
That is a different.
I feel like it's not deserved. I feel like you got to work for him.
Hey, who's the one that just came back from LA?
I deserved it.
So 3 weeks ago?
Yeah, I deserved it.
Yeah.
No, and then this is why I'm asking, because I work a lot. Mm-hmm. I work a lot. I have a full-time job, and then I also have what I would say almost a full-time business. I have a business, and I almost work full-time, if not a little bit more. And then I have this, and this is very involved as well. Not only am I having to be here on the weekends, but I'm also having to do a lot of editing. So does he. I'm not saying I do more. He does a lot. He does a lot too. But specifically for my situation, so I have 2 kids and I have a wife as well. So having to manage all of this is hard. Having to manage it is not difficult, but having finding time to spend with my family is hard, and just finding that balance. So yes, I did go a month ago, and we went to Disneyland with the kids, and then I just felt bad because we came back, and then this weekend, we're gonna do a podcast. This weekend we're gonna do a podcast. When are we gonna hang out? And it was her birthday, so I was like, and I'm really lucky. I'm blessed that my parents live here in town, so my parents help me a lot with my kids. So I asked my mom if she could take care of the kids for the weekend, and I took her out. She wanted to go to California. She wanted to go to Disneyland. She wanted to go to San Diego for her birthday weekend. So I took a vacation a month ago, and then I also went out last weekend. But I feel like I don't really like going on vacation. I feel like it's more stressful for me going on vacation. Maybe it's because I have kids, but I have to get everybody packed. We got to go to the airport. We have to be at the airport on time. And then we have to go to Disneyland, and then we have to be in lines like an hour for a freaking game. I'm just like, dude, this is not worth it. Walk like 10 miles a day. I'm like, dude, I should have just stayed home. This guy calls me a Grinch. But she wanted to do that. So I'm like, all right, we're going to go out and we're going to do this. But I feel like sometimes people take vacations a little too much, and maybe it's not as deserving.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there definitely has to be a balance, Jorge. In vacations. No, but take advantage. Look, I used to pride myself on companies would give you an allotment of PTO hours. I wouldn't take them all. Yeah. Like I would lose them at the end of the year. They wouldn't even pay me out. I didn't even care. My wife will tell you, I didn't care. I just want to grind. I just want to work. And my big pride point was that I don't go on vacations, but my family goes on beautiful vacations. Like I've sent her to Dubai. She's been all over the world, Aruba. Like I pay for very beautiful vacations for my family. And I used to pride myself because I wouldn't do that. Now as I'm older, I realize what a fucking stupid mistake. What a dumb thing to do. Like you shouldn't do that. Like she has all these visions and all these pictures of Dubai and all these areas. I'm not in all those pictures, in any of those, right? And now I realize like, no, this is my opportunity to be able to go back and find that balance. Now, I always ask myself, do you earn the vacations? Are you the person that is putting in the work? What would your peers say about you? Would they say, oh, ya va de vuelta? What are they doing? Stuff like that. So,
pregúntate para la próxima que preguntes, güey.
But you got to find a balance. And look, this barely happened years ago. I take on everything. Any job I have, I take on all responsibilities. Anything that comes down my pike, I'll do it. I'll run it. I didn't care about the hours, the allotment, or anything. But a few years ago, they approached me with a project. And I just got into a very heavy role. It was a new role for me. And they approached me with a project, and I'm already dedicating 60, 70 hours to this role. I'm dedicating to another 10 to 15 hours on mentorship because I mentor a lot of people. And then they told me, hey, this is a national lead project for you. So you'd be the national lead for the company and stuff on it. I said, okay, well, how much is that going to take? And they're like, you're probably going to do 10, maybe 15 hours a week. I was like, shit, man, that's over 90 hours a week, right?
8, maybe 15 hours a week.
Yeah, they just keep on that. And old Pedro, he would have thought about it and said, like, you know what? I'll take it because it's more responsibilities. But I thought about my wife. My wife has been my biggest supporter. She's been my biggest advocate my whole life and my whole career. And she was already, and don't get me wrong, my queen will, whatever you want, Dad, that's it. Where you're at, it's my home, and I'm good with that. Whatever you want, we're good. And she would support me. And I know I don't have to ask because she'll say yes. But at that point, I was going to give everything on that table to the job. And my wife was only going to get the scraps. And my queen will not live off scraps. I refused to let her live off scraps. And I said no to the project. I said no. And that's the first time in my life I said no. I'm not going to take on that project. I'm sorry. She's not going to live off what's left off the table. She's going to sit at the table because she deserves that. So I had to find that balance where I could come back. At this point in my life and my career, I didn't need that external validation. I had all my validation internal. So I made the right choice in not taking on that project.
Yeah, I bet that felt good.
It felt terrible at first because I'm so used to taking on everything. Like, I'm Johnny on the spot, man. You put me, boom, let's go. I'll take on anything. I don't care the workload. But at that point, once I realized what I'd done, and when I told her, and my wife cried, she's like, really, you did that? I said, like, yes. And she's crying, like, bawling. I was like, I guess it was good, man. Because I did do the right thing. Like, me va a cocinar algo rico.
Dang.
I think that's learned over time, no? Because I know when you're younger and stuff, it's the whole hustle mentality, todo esto, and with all the distractions, with social media, with everything, people look for validation. Like, hay muchas cosas que at the end of the day, I think with time, with experience, you realize what matters or the balance. Because at the end of the day, everything is really trying to figure out balance for everything. I mean, comes mucho. I mean, you could eat, pero puedes comer hamburguesa, pero cada rato, no. So there's a balance for everything, whether it's personal or career-wise, lo que sea. And I think that's really up to the person where you're at the time. Everyone's a little different, but I think that's kind of like, I would say that's kind of like the ultimate goal, to have that, because I feel like life is short, in a way. So cherish the moments, like, so.
Yeah. Well, and I think we need to identify that early on. Like, I get my work ethic from my father for sure. My father was the hardest working man, dude. That man worked 7 days a week, nonstop. Me acuerdo en invierno ni comía, dude. He would come home, and because he worked in the field, sometimes you don't get the hours, or you're just, there's not enough food on the table. Ustedes coman, yo tomo café. So I would watch that. That's the role model I grew up with. My dad died when he was 52 years old. My dad died of cancer. He used to work in the fields, and he ended up getting skin cancer, and me and my brothers talk about this all the time. We're very convinced that it had to do with all the chemicals from the fields. He had a big wound on the back of his head because he burned his head when he was a child. And we're very convinced that's where the skin cancer started, and eventually formed a tumor, and he died. But I always watched him, and I always saw how hardworking he was. And I remember my dad, he was just us. For my dad, it was just us, not a lot of friendships, not a lot of people outside of it. But when my dad died, and we were from a little town, and at that point living in a little town in South Texas, Sullivan City, it's a tiny town, 2,000 people. I remember the graveyard got completely full by people I didn't know when my father died. I didn't know who it was, and the graveyard was completely full. And I remember, in our cultura, en los mexicanos, damos el pésame, right? Right afterwards, you sit, and everybody comes and talks to you. And I'm sitting in the front because I'm his oldest son. And I remember so many men that I didn't know, and you could tell these are hard-working men, hands like just chiseled rock, looking, they've worked their whole life. And they're all like, man, tú eres el hijo de Pedro, sí. Te quiero decir, mijo, tu papá era el hombre más trabajador que yo conocí en toda mi vida. Respetos a tu papá. Every man after man after man after man kept on telling me how hardworking that man was. And that stuck in my head. Like, that is my namesake. That is who I am. Like, I have to be that person. My dad never found balance. And he died when he was 52 years old. I have 5 pictures of my father. I have one tattooed on my hand because I have 5 pictures that exist of my father. Because never even had time to take a picture. My wife asked me to take a picture. I'll take 600 pictures if she wants. My daughters need a video. I will take the video because I want them to have that memory. Because when those 5 pictures are gone, that is the last image of my father in existence. So much so that I had to tattoo it on me because I wanted it to exist forever, right? So we have to find a way to balance that out. How hard it might be, but you're absolutely right. How do we make sure our families are getting what they need out of us? And we're not just looking at it as I'm doing my part by providing financially. You got to do more than that, brother. You got to provide more than that.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the. I think that's part of, I don't know if traumatized is the right word, that we're traumatized on why we try to work so much, is because you realize, like, in reality, maybe we had it rough, maybe, but our parents had it a lot rougher. So it's like only you know what they went through. So it just makes you think like, oh, I gotta, and they tell you too, they remind you, no, cuando yo estaba chiquito ni tenía que comer, or no, que whatever it is that they say, right? So it's like, I think those kind of things kind of stick in your mind, and you're like, man, I fucking have it easy. Even if we're out here working 10, 12-hour days, we're like, compared to them, we have it easy. And I think that's part of like why we're traumatized on like working so much and like wanting to achieve so much, just because we want to make them proud. But then at the same time, it's like we just we have an opportunity that not a lot of people have had.
Absolutely. I think you're 100% accurate. Look, our 12 hours, my 12 hours are in air-conditioned units.
Yeah.
Right? My dad's 12 hours were in the fucking sun, in the beating sun, with chemicals, with no breaks. There was, and I remember for years, cuando trabajabas en labor, they wouldn't even bring porta potties, dude. They wouldn't bring you water. That was ridiculous.
Yep.
You're in the 80s, and you're working in the fields. That's why the UFW and all those were so important to the farm worker, because they started bringing around porta potties and water. My dad grew up in that, where it was, no había más. Like, tú le vas a dar, y tú no te vas a quejar, y que me duele esto, me duele, que te duela todo, me vale, y tú vas a chingarle. And then you come up, and you grow up, and you're working in AC, and you almost have a guilt about it. You almost feel guilty, like that you're going to complain about shit. Like, I'm 12 hours here, but hey, there's fucking a bowl of candy over there. Or I can order food on DoorDash. My dad couldn't order food on DoorDash. My dad couldn't get something delivered to him. And that man never complained. I always say that about my suegro, man. My suegro, man, is one of the greatest men I know. Always happy. But that man is albañil, so he works out, in construction, and he does a lot of foundational work, asphalt, brick, and everything like that. His skin is purple from being in the sun, because he's in Texas where it's 150 degree. But that man never complains. Every time I see him, he always has a smile on his face. He has a Bud Light in his hand, but he has a smile on his face, and maybe that's why. But he is a person that just looks like, I'm providing for my family, I'm doing. So we have this guilt about, like, should I complain? Can I complain?
He would be embarrassed of you if he knew you were drinking Bud Light with 0 alcohol.
I know.
No le hables, por favor. Si lo traemos, no se lo presentamos a Jorge. Y le va a Morelia también. So.
Ya me retiré de tomar por eso.
You'd be embarrassed.
You'd be embarrassed.
Don't we have some right there?
We do.
Don't show that to my suegro, please.
No.
He will get so mad.
Yeah. Hey, before we move on, let me just check the camera. Everything's good.
I just saw that you had a tequila page, and that seemed like something fun. And you were talking about that you have a tequila collection.
Yes. So years ago, I used to manage a facility in la Ciudad de Mexico, in Coyoacán. So I started taking what are called catador classes. A catador is basically a tequila sommelier. You become an expert in tequilas. You learn all about them. You learn the differences between highland and lowland tequilas. And I fell in love with tequilas. Tequilas for us as Latinos, especially as Mexicanos, they're kind of our DNA, man. This was originally even from the Aztec times. Tequila was a big source. Un pulque fermentado de agave is the existence of tequila, and that's where we come from, right? So for me, it made a lot of sense. So I really got into tequilas. I started collecting them. I got my catador certification. I have a blog page. It's Pisteando con Don Pedro on Instagram, and I rate tequilas. I go through them. I talk about them. I also have food on there, food that goes good with tequila, and kind of the history of tequila. The issue nowadays is most people are like, oh, tequila me duele la cabeza and stuff. We grew up drinking Sausa. We grew up drinking Jose Cuervo. We grew up drinking what is known in the tequila world as mixtos. Mixtos have agave in them, so the only requirement for tequila is to have blue agave, but they have a lot of sugar. And when you put a lot of sugar in it, it dilutes it, also dehydrates the body, causes you to get headaches. It causes a lot of issues. It's like drinking a very sugary cocktail. So we still have that image of like, oh, when I was doing Cuervo shots, that's the problem. That's the problem. So I follow very organic tequilas, very traditionally made tequilas, tequilas that are very hard to find, especially when I came to Oregon. In Texas, I was collecting really good tequilas. In California, it was great. Oregon is a lot more limited, but I found some really good ones. And then I talk about them. I have conversations about them. I do tequila tastings too for anybody that's interested. But I'll show up and I'll bring like ceviche, un cóctel de camarón. I'll bring 5, 6, just depending on the crowd. My best tequilas or the level of tequilas that you want. And then I'll give you like a schooling on each tequila, where it comes from, the distillery it comes from, how it's made, what's traditional about it, what's different from it. So I have a pretty good, extensive tequila collection. Yeah.
You have a tequila collection too, no? Would you not call it a collection?
No, it's not a tequila collection.
Well, I guess because you
we
drink them. Hey,
no.
I guess we do have a tequila collection. We have one.
No, well, see, no.
Yeah, just the one behind the mask.
Yeah.
That's about it.
That was just a normal.
Just normal, but I had a customer.
Lo trajeron de Mexico. And then the other one, I think it's empty, no? It's the typical.
Yeah, that one's just the
typical.
Don Julio.
I forgot who. I don't know who brought it.
I don't remember.
It was a guest brought it. No, I have because my brother-in-law me hizo una barra para afuera, so the backyard, And so that was just, there was a moment when I went through the phase of being a mixologist and just kind of like, so I bought a lot of whiskey, tequila, all different type of spirits, liquor, todo lo que sea. And I was just learning how to do drinks. So that's why I have them. So it's not a collection. It's just more to when people come over, I do some mixed drinks, mojitos, lo que sea.
What's your favorite tequila-based cocktail?
I just take the typical Don Julio.
But if you're going to make a cocktail, like a mixed drink, what do you make?
I like mojitos, so because that's just me, and margarita because everybody likes margarita. I try.
Everybody.
Well, it's because this is the funny thing. I try doing other things, not the typical. Y la gente no quiere. Well, at least the guests that I have over at my house, they're like, "Oh, get my margarita." I was like, okay, really? It's like, yeah. Hey, let's try this. Try this. No, I want margarita. So I just do margaritas, mojitos. I do mojitos a lot, margaritas. And then once in a while, I do some random drinks that I have on my tablet that I've over the years. I don't even know what the names are. Pero ahí está el nombre. But I don't know, dude. Yeah, mojitos.
Well, I do margaritas, but I do what's called traditionally a Tommy's margarita. So it's very different. So there's a restaurant in San Francisco. It's kind of known the Mecca of tequila on the West Coast. I encourage people to visit it whenever they can go. They have some of the best tequilas there. So they developed this tequila mix that I make, and people are like, oh my God, it's amazing. It's real simple. It's just 2 ounces of freshly squeezed lime. I like to use a Myers lemon or a Myers lime. And then 2 ounces of tequila, 1 ounce of agave syrup, and then salt or tajin to taste. That's it. It's natural. It's perfect. There's no triple sec. There's nothing else, just like that. And every time I make that, people are like, oh my God, this is an amazing margarita. So yeah, I do traditional. I like a lot because we're drinking Topo Chico. In Texas, they call them carretas or Texas ranch water. And all that is it's just 2 ounces of tequila, and then you put some Topo Chico water. You squeeze a full lime into it, and then you put salt or tajin to mix. And it's just a Texas ranch water. It's refreshing.
That's what it's called? Okay. We
Texas
do that
ranch
too.
water.
And then the typical, I think they call it Cuba.
Cubana, yeah,
Right? It's just
Coke and
Coke.
tequila.
And then a lot of people like Paloma too. Or sí, Paloma.
I don't like the Paloma.
So
I do.
on my Facebook page, I actually that's called a batanga.
Really?
So what you're doing is a batanga. A batanga was made originally in La Ciudad de Tequila. I can't remember the name of the bar, but the gentleman that made it there, it's coca mexicana. You just do coca mexicana, and then you do some tequila, and then you put lemon, and you salt the rim.
I think the Cubana is squirt, actually.
No, not
Is that what it
Cubana.
is?
It's Cuba.
Cuba, you're right.
I've known that it's been called
Cuba.
Cuba, but that's growing up. I've never actually researched it was Cuba, but Cuba is coca mexicana, tequila, y luego limón.
You know what's funny? I've had
You
this.
actually squeeze it in.
I've had this a lot, but I've never even had it with Mexican coca.
No?
I always just put it out of a can.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, just out of a can.
Mexican coca is the original, and if you watch the video, I did the video on my page, you're actually supposed to, I don't know why, the tradition is the knife that you cut the lime with is the knife you mix the alcohol with.
Oh, yeah, I saw
That's
that
the
video.
tradition you have to do. And they're delicious, man. They're really good. I do vampiros. When it comes to tequila, I'll do Bloody Marias. I'll do a lot. Tequila and mezcal. I love mezcal too, but more so tequila. And I've been collecting for quite a bit, man. So I have hundreds of bottles at this point.
Oh, wow.
What would you say your favorite? Do you ever just drink it on the rocks?
All the time.
What
I sip mostly tequila.
would you say your favorite tequila to sip is?
Fortaleza.
Fortaleza. I've never even had it. Have you?
Well, no, but that's one of the things. I remember when I was going through the whole phase of that, there was like, oh, these are the... I don't remember. I have everything on my tablet. Decían que hay mucha tequila que aquí en Estados Unidos, that you get a hangover because it has this. No sé qué tiene aditivos. No me acuerdo lo que tiene. Dicen que this is not good tequila. So then they're like, these are the tequilas that you want to get. And these are names that I've never heard, but it's because it's not mainstream here in the U.S., and like, this is true tequila. This is the one the rocks, the la tomas, así, lo que sea. If you want to do mixed drinks, usa esto. So, but yeah, I've never heard of that, but I'm assuming it's good stuff.
Yeah, so La Tequila Fortaleza is made... so the grandfather of tequila in Mexico, his name is Zenobio Sausa. Zenobio Sausa is one of the original maestro tequileros of Mexico. He was the one that learned from the original Jose Cuervo. So Zenobio Sausa is also the first person to start importing tequila into the United States. So he started the distillery, became very famous, the Sausa family, everybody knows who he was and everything. But then he sold it off. Well, then his nephew comes along, or his grandson, one of his grandson comes along, and he says, I want to open it up. I want to start the distillery. And that distillery, they used to name it Los Abuelos, because it was his grandfather's distillery. So he starts making this amazing tequila, man. But then he gets sued in Mexico because there's already another tequila named Los Abuelos. So he has to change the name to Fortaleza. So he changed the name to Fortaleza, and it comes out in very limited amounts. You're lucky if you can get a bottle. He has winter blends. He has different areas of it, but it is one of my favorite tequilas. The other one is called Tears of Llorona, and that's actually made. So tequila's always made in the same region, Tequila Jalisco, but there's one tequila that's allowed to be made outside of that region. It's actually made where my wife was born. The original tequila that comes out of that region. What happened? There was a general a long time ago. There was a strike con todos los hacenderos y los jimadores de Jalisco, and they didn't want to be cultivating agave anymore. So what they did is the hacenderos started reaching out to other people. They reached out to I think his name is El General González. He was this comandante general en la militar. He says, hey, I have a bunch of property in Tamaulipas, and it's prime and it's fertile, and we can grow the agave for you if you sign a contract with us. So they signed a contract with General González to be able to get the agaves from his place. So agave takes 7 years to cultivate, right? So he starts growing agave. At the end of the 7 years, the hacenderos are like, you know what? We figured out the strike already. We don't need the tequila. We don't need the agave. And he's like, wait a minute. Tengo chingos de hectáreas que ya les hice de puro agave. ¿Qué voy a hacer con esto? Tu figurale, no sé. And agave at that time, the blue Weber agave was only used for tequila, so there's nothing really he could do with it. So he petitioned the government, and you're talking about, I think it was like 1950s, 1960s. He petitioned the government, and he said, mira, esta gente me la jugaron mal, me dijeron que me iban a comprar toda la tequila, todo el agave, no me lo compraron. Can I start making my own tequila? So they allowed him to start making his own tequila. So it's grown in Tamaulipas. It's called Chinaco, and it's old school. It's la tequilería se llama La Gonzaleña because his last name was González. So they started making this amazing tequila in the 80s. At that point, 70s and 80s, and they were one of the first tequilas to actually come into the United States. They became mainstream. Like if you went to Studio 54 back then in the 70s, which was really big in New York, you were drinking Chinaco tequila.
Really?
Yeah, it was the fanciest tequila that there was. And then a lot of other tequilas started coming out. His grandson, Guillermo, I think is his name, he started making a different tequila called Tears of Llorona, which is an extra añejo, which is aged 4 to 5 years. It is an amazing sipping tequila. So between Fortaleza and Tears of Llorona, those are my favorite sipping tequilas.
Yeah.
And with Fortaleza, I'll do the añejo. They got an extra añejo, a dark lot. I like those as well.
But those are not something you can just go to a liquor store and buy then. So those are something that are a little more sought after, more difficult to find.
Well, yeah. Here in Oregon, I'll go to the Oregon Liquor Search, the website, y en meses you'll be able to see, and they're like, oh, Fortaleza bottles in Portland, and I'll go pick up a couple. If I see them, I'll pick them up. If you go to California, you will find them more often. California is the mecca of tequila. Texas, you'll find them more often, but it's not something you can just go pick up. One that I do recommend that you can pick up anywhere, it's a blanco. So there's 3 different variations normally of tequila. A blanco, a reposado, and an añejo. A blanco is usually not aged. It can be still strength or up to 2 months. And a reposado is aged up to a year, sometimes a little bit more. And then an añejo is aged up to 3 years, right? That's why it turns darker. Well, this blanco is called Lalo, and is made by Lalo González, who is the grandson of Don Julio. Don Julio had amazing tequila, but then Don Julio ended up selling the business to somebody else. So his grandson said, you know what? I want to make tequila like my grandfather used to make tequila. And so he developed this blanco. You can buy it anywhere, and it is one of my favorite tequilas. I know people still do shots. You want to do shots? I would recommend Lalo. Mixed drinks, anything like that. It's about $40 more or less a bottle, but it is fantastic. Made the original way. No additives, nothing inorganic, nothing that shouldn't be in there. Amazing, amazing tequila.
I'll have to try it.
Yeah.
What's your most expensive bottle you have?
Pricey bottles.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Because I've seen some that are like 1,750.
I have a couple.
1,000.
I have one bottle that is one of 2 in the world.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's very expensive. It was a gift. The person that went and got them, he's like, hey, I'm gonna. What he did, he was establishing a brand, and so a lot of distilleries were hosting him, and now it's an established brand. But those are one of the original bottles that he got for the brand, and he gave that to me. And then I got other bottles también that are.
What do you think of the Clase Azul ones? Because I know a lot of people use it like more like hype y todo eso. But I've noticed there's a lot of different series of those.
Yeah. Mira, I'm going to preface it with this, guys. Drink the tequila that you want, but know what you're drinking. That's the only thing I tell people, right? Because there's different things. There's certain tequilas I will not drink. And don't get me wrong, I have a bottle of Clase Azul at the house because they gifted it to me. I don't drink Clase Azul. Clase Azul. So what happens in Mexico, the ones that I drink that I love are all additive free. So in Mexico, to be considered additive free or organic, you can have less than 1% additives in it. That's still a lot when you're considering que las hacen en tumbas grandes, something real big. So it's still a lot of additives, right? So I don't drink anything with additives. And additives change the flavor. They also use what's called a diffuser. A diffuser, what it is, like I said, mira, una tequila buena, you wait 7 years for the agave to come out. But when you have, for la miel de la piña que salga, when you have a diffuser, you can push the agave through it, force it through at like 2 years old. And you're forcing la miel, la agua miel que salga, by putting it through a diffuser. And a lot of these bigger companies, they use diffusers. So if they use a diffuser, I don't drink it. There's a lot of companies that do it. Clase Azul doesn't use a diffuser, but they do have additives in it. And how you can test an additive is very simple. Grab a really good tequila that you know is additive free. Y luego límpiate las manos con ella. Just do a little, cualquier cosita. It'll instantly dry. And you'll instantly like, oh, there's nothing there. If you get something,
sticky.
Yes. If it has additives, you go like this, and it's also like, you remember when we first started doing the hand sanitizer with COVID? It feels like that when you, there's something
We
there.
went into Cabela's and they were using whiskey. They were using whiskey to disinfectant.
Really?
Yeah, it's just like the thing. You press on it and it squirts out the whiskey. You smell it. It smells just like whiskey.
I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Yeah. Well, and that's how you can tell, because sometimes you'll go to a liquor store and they'll be like, oh, this is additive free. And they're giving you testing samples, and I'll say, a ver, let's try it out. I also use there's an app, Tequila Matchmaker. Tequila Matchmaker is like the Bible of tequila collectors, because you can go in there and it'll tell you también if it's additive free. It's called the Additive Free Alliance, and it has a little agave by it. And it'll tell you this is an additive-free tequila, so you'll be able to drink it. I just like that because it's sustainable. It's the way to grow tequila. It's the way all the tequilas should be done. And they don't cut out the imador. They don't cut out the hacendero. They don't cut out any of the workers. Everybody gets their cut from the tequila, which is good. You get these big companies like Diageo and all these that go in there, and they don't care. They just process it to get it out. That's why you get a lot of celebrity tequilas.
I was just going to ask what your opinion was on celebrity tequilas. Let's get to it.
Well, let's start off with the positive. George Strait makes an amazing tequila. George Strait, the country singer.
I didn't even know he owned tequila.
Yeah, it's called Código. Well, he bought the tequila. It was already established, and then he became a partner in it. I'll drink that tequila all day long. They have one that's called Tequila Rosa, which is beautiful. What it is, that it's a Blanco, but it's aged in Merlot barrels that had Merlot wine in them. So the tequila starts turning a little bit pink. So that's why they call it Rosa. That's an amazing tequila. All the Códigos are really good. Outside of that, there's not many celebrity tequilas that are fantastic, that are like, oh my God, this is made the original way. It just became something that became like Casamigos. Not a fan. Not a fan of Casamigos. I don't even think I own a bottle of Casamigos, right? I don't have any Casamigos. De Leon, that's Dairy's tequila. Oof, that's probably one of the worst tequilas
I've never heard of that one.
De Leon, the one that Michael Jordan owns.
Sin Corro.
Yeah. Kevin Hart.
The Rock.
Terramana. Terramana, when it first came out, it actually tasted pretty decent. And then I found out all the details behind it, and no, not for me.
One of the Jenners too.
Oh, that's the worst tequila. The
818 or something.
So
like that.
let me tell you a story on that one, and why that one especially gets me upset. So look, if you go to the Tequila Matchmaker and you find a distillery, if you pick up a bottle of tequila in the back or in the front, it'll say NOM, Nominación de Origen. The NOM is the number of the distillery, and that's how you can find out if it's a good distillery. Like if you look at Fortaleza, the NOM, it only makes Fortaleza tequila. But sometimes in Tequila Matchmaker, you can look up the NOM, the series. You'll go in there and you'll see that the distillery makes 100 different bottles. That's not going to be good, because that means they don't care. They're just pushing it through. They're doing different stuff. So what they did is 818 started off at a distillery. Now I won't name the distillery, but they started off at a distillery that had a lot of bottles made there. So as soon as people saw that, the NOM, they're like, oh, I went to a cheap distillery, man. That's not good. You know what they did? They purchased an area of the distillery and gave it a different NOM. They paid all the tickets. They did everything they had to so that they can get their own gnome. They gave them their own gnome number there. So when you look it up now, it says, oh, this is the only bottle made there. Bullshit. It's made in the back room of that same distillery. So it's like, oh, that's not great. It's a sneaky trick, man.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Not a fan of the 818. I mean, there is decent celebrity tequilas. That's just not one that I would touch.
Exactly. You know, when I was doing that, I ordered tequila online.
Yeah, you told me.
Yeah, I told you. Yeah, from Cali. I don't even know the name on it right now, but they had a bunch of tequila selections. So.
Yeah, there's one in San Diego. It's called Old Town. Fantastic.
Oh, I think that's it. Yeah. I think I get a lot of emails about it still.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, they email you all the time, but they have great selections.
Yeah.
I buy, so I like G4, G4. It's made by Felipe Camarena. The name of the distillery is El Pandillero or El Pan, yeah, I think so, something like that. But it's a beautiful distillery, beautiful tequila, really done really well. And he has a Dia de los Muertos edition, which comes in a coffin. So the bottle comes in a coffin, and you open it up, and it's made by the Blanco Tequila. Really?
All right, guys, we're back.
Okay, so I guess I'll stop beating around the bush, and I'll just ask you what I really want to ask you. How do you feel about non-Mexican people owning tequila brands?
Oh, I think that's it's sacrilegious to a degree. I'll tell you that right now. So look, tequila has a denominación de origen, which means it can only be made by law in the tequila region of Mexico, which now constitutes different areas. It used to be only in Jalisco. So you cannot get tequila made in Russia. You cannot make tequila in the United States. You can only make it in Mexico. It is one of the most sustainable crops in the world because you can continue to sustain it. You can continue to do it. You can continue to do well with it. Now, don't get me wrong. If somebody goes in there and they're respectful of the whole process, and they're respectful of the 7 years maturation on the agave, and they pay their dues, and the jimadores are taken care of, the hacenero, everybody's taken care of. Okay, that's fine. I respect that. You have an opportunity. The problem is that the majority of people that have come from industries outside of Mexico aren't doing that. They're coming in there and setting up companies with diffusers, setting up companies that are moving fast, not paying the hacenderos, not paying the jimador, not paying anybody that works the actual work of the tequila, and they're just not making it sustainable. If you're doing it every 2 years, because that's what they're doing, they're getting the tequila and they're letting it go 2 years and then they're using it, that is not sustainable. You cannot cultivate the ground every 2 years and expect it to happen forever. It won't. You give it 7 years, you give enough time for the ground to heal, the ground to do well, the agave to be the best. So I'm not a fan of it.
So you grow agave and you can only grow it once every 7 years?
Well, you'll grow it. So 1 year you plant one crop, it'll be ready in 7 years. The next year you plant another crop, it'll be ready in 7 years. So every year there's more crops coming out. There's just a 7-year maturation. That's how long it takes for the agave to become mature.
God, it's a long-term game right there. Dang.
Yeah.
But they're planting fields every day. It keeps on growing. Fortaleza is so hard to get because he only uses like his stock, his area. He's actually adding on to the distillery. This will be available by next year. We still want to go do the tequila tour for it. But it's limited because there's limited space. So they have to get creative with it. And it just depends. I got some tequilas that take forever to get, man. Because it's 7 years just on the tequila again. And then there's extra añejos. Like there's a G4 that's aged 55 months, which is 4.5 years. Yeah. So to get one of those bottles, you're going to wait at least 12 years. Kind of like the Scotch, 12-year Scotch. You're waiting 12 years on one of those bottles.
Dang.
Yeah.
It's a long time.
Yeah, that's one of my my holy grails, the G455. I've never been able to get that bottle. I said I'd almost give one of my kids for that bottle, but I haven't been able to find that bottle anywhere.
Dang.
I think there was 900 in existence.
900.
Yeah, and I think right now they probably drank at least half of them.
Yeah.
So there's quite a bit less now.
Well, quick shout out to our barber Aaron with BM Faded. Like I said, he was the one that put us onto your profile, and not only that, but he also had a question for you. I saw the video that you just did recently with the tequila, the one where you were talking about the knife where when you cut it, you have to stir it. That's the original way to do it. And I didn't know that you had the other page drinking to that, but his question is, when are we going to see more content tequila related?
Yeah, so look, I got to do it. My wife is the one that got me convinced to do the blog. Folks, I started that blog in 2020 when COVID hit, and we were stuck at home, and I was just me and my wife and the dogs all day long. So she's like, "Hey, well, you're hanging out with the dogs. You're doing carne asada every day, and you're drinking tequila. Let's do a blog about it." It's like, okay, cool. And then work came back up. So I'm gonna go back to it because I got a lot new bottles. My knowledge has grown extensively even since then because I do a lot of tequila tastings here. I've met a lot of people that are really into tequila here. So yeah, pretty soon we'll do some more content. Maybe you guys can help me out. Maybe we can do one. You guys could come over to the house. We could do a mobile tequila tasting.
Yeah. Don't have him do it though, because we'll be waiting all day. He's a slow bartender, man.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, but okay. No, that's good on that.
Well, guys, look, I do want to say just thank you for putting this vehicle together for folks to be able to come through in Salem, especially for the focus on the Latino collective, right? I think a lot of times me and my wife started an organization, LatinosInLeadership.org, where we just see, especially in the Pacific Northwest, there is not as much involvement or a lot of exposure to the Latino experience, and it's limited. So we do a lot of like consulting for businesses, individual. I mentor people one-on-one. We do a lot of stuff like that, but we don't feel that's enough, right? So I really just applaud you for having this, making it accessible. I love your stuff. We always watch it. We talk about it because you're giving another avenue for people to have awareness to us and exposure to us, and that needs to be had. You know, as a culture. We're the sixth biggest economy in the world when the Latinos get together in the United States, but yet we represent less than 4% of the CEO population. So that kind of stuff needs to change, man. And we need to advocate more. We need to have more resources. We moved over here from Texas, where it's 95% Latinos. So it's very different. I mean, you go outside, you throw a rock, you're going to hit a Mexican. You know, it's different. You go to any store, they automatically talk to you in Spanish. But when you come to the Pacific Northwest, it's different. You come to the Pacific Northwest, it's almost like you see the Latinos, and they almost don't want to talk. They almost, I remember I went to facilities where they told me like, "Oh, you can't speak Spanish here." What the fuck do you mean I can't speak Spanish? Why not? They're like, "Oh, no. It's just, they'll think you're talking about them." Well, they should fucking learn Spanish then. Like, learn the language. Like, don't assume because a person's speaking any language that they're going to talk about you negatively. That's more a reflection on who you are, because if you carry yourself in a good way, you don't have to worry what people say. But in the Pacific Northwest, it was almost an alienation. It was almost like they felt less. And I don't understand why. It was just hard for me to deal with. When I grew up in California, it was much the same. When the Mexicanos got to California, just like my parents, they were coming to work in the fields. So they felt like they weren't part of the crowd. They weren't part of the economy. They weren't part of the political system. We are part of the political system now. We are part of the crowd. We make money. We build principle. We build equity. We were so worried about eating at their table, man. We were so worried about them inviting us to their things. I don't eat at their fucking table. We don't need to do that. We're going to build our own table. Our table will have better food, better music, better people. And we need to stop worrying about getting scraps from the table. And I think you guys are creating this type of vehicle where it's really going to help out people to say, like, okay, I have somebody that understands Latinos that we can go talk to, that we can be a part of, that we can support. And that goes for our Latinos watching this. Our Latinos have to more progressively support at Podcast Salem. They need to come out. They need to say, like, okay, man, you're giving to the community. How can we give back? How can we attend? How can we bump up your numbers? So we all want to be a part of that, because the more we get united behind that, the more we push that agenda, the better off it is for our future people.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think it's just people not having the knowledge of it. Like, I don't have the knowledge of it. And he said some similar things like that as well. And he's like, dude, we just got to be ourselves. And if we want to speak Spanglish, we're going to speak Spanglish. And if people want to watch, they're going to watch. And if they don't, then that's okay too.
It's okay.
You had said, like, the way we say certain words, like, why do we got to change the way we say certain words, pronounce certain words if that's not how we originally say the words, right? And that's something that he's always said too. And no, I think we think you're right, and we're trying to work on that. So slowly but steady.
Yeah, just be proud in who we are, man. Like, our culture is so beautiful, man, and we bring fucking centuries and centuries of beauty to this world, man. The myth, man, and I always try to dissuade the myth. When you look at Mexicanos or Latinos, you always say, like, oh, the Latinos in the United States, they're just here to work. They're good workers. And that's what they view us as. Oh, they're just here to work. They can build a house in 3 days, you know. They can get the quince ready in 2 days. They can do all that kind of stuff. They're just here to work, and they'll be quiet. But we need to get away from that, because that's a myth. Don't get me wrong. We're hard workers. Nobody can beat us at work, for sure. But we're more than that. We're doctors, we're lawyers, we're architects, we're artists. We bring so much to the table. I don't want to lose that humble heart that we have as trabajadores, as really being hard worker.
I agree.
Die with that, but at the same time, that is not everything that we are. We are so much more than that. We're educated, we're valuable, we bring so much to the table.
Yeah, it just goes back to everything. I think I touched base last time. Todos los hispanos que han venido para los Estados Unidos han sido familias, less than fortunate. I would say about 90% of Mexicanos or even South and Central Americans are like that, right? En México tú vas, hay muchos con maestría, todo lo que es. Ellos viven allá, ellos no vienen para acá, ¿verdad? Ellos son, they would say, what is it, like 70% están en pobreza allá en México, ¿no?
Something like that, yeah.
Estados Unidos nada más conoce al hispano que vino acá con, I don't want to say, más pobre, ¿verdad? So ellos conocen a los que trabajan en el campo, en el fin, en la construcción y todo eso. And slowly, I think over time, the last, 30, 40 years, we've been progressing, but they don't know el mexicano que es empresario ya, que es emprendedor, todo lo que es doctor, lo que sea, because ellos no vienen para acá, ¿verdad? But I think that's changing. I think we're living in a transition, at least here in the Pacific Northwest. And I think Cali, Texas, ha tenido todo eso ya desde antes porque ellos han migrado antes que the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah.
Y Washington, pues, todo eso. So.
100%. The first time I met an educated Mexicano, like a Mexican national, was in Texas. I was working for a company that through NAFTA was building foundations on this side. It was kind of like an importer-exporter, and they would bring in licenciados y ingenieros de la UNAM y de la Tec de Monterrey, and they were ingenieros, and they were fucking maestría, scientists, all this kind of stuff. And I would listen to them talk, and I was like, I had so used to gente from Jalisco, Michoacán, La Huerta, Jalisco, all these areas, right? That's where I'm from. That's my family, right? And they were super educated. They were showing up in Jaguars. They were showing up in Beamers. They had all these degrees, beautiful homes. They were just coming over as consultants. And I didn't even know that existed until I went to Texas because we were on the border, so close to the border, that they would work a little bit here, a little bit there. But that's the first time I had that exposure. And to your point, not many of us do. But we're making changes and things are changing. The new electric car that's going to come out of Mexico, the Olin.
Oh, yeah. Have you seen that?
It's amazing. It's going to blow Tesla out of the water. They're going to make it so that you can plug it into a 110. It's made by all Mexican engineers, all young Mexicans putting it together. And they're sourcing what's called non-blood lithium. So lithium, I hate to say it, but lithium is sourced in the Congo, what are called blood mines, right? That's just what it is. Mexico found a repository of lithium that they're sourcing the ethical and the sustainable way because of AMLO. So they sourced it the sustainable way. So you can trust that you're buying lithium that is not hurting people, that's not killing people. It's going to have more mileage than the Tesla, and you're going to be able to plug it into cualquier enchufe, man. Real Mexican, right? You just plug it into anything, dude, and it'll charge.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Look into it, man. It's badass. I think it's badass. Yeah. Todo.
Dang, I didn't even know that. No, I hadn't heard of that.
I saw it from the new president de Mexico. Lo estaba anunciando. I saw it on social media, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, she's doing big things, man. I'm not doing big things. She's going to be doing big things. Like, we're progressing. Now that we have that, what's that called? The Trans-American Railroad, too, that's going to take over Panama Canal. I've been on the Panama Canal. It's absolutely beautiful, but it is a long process to get there. Mexico, through Quintana Roo and the Yucatan, is building a rail system that will go all the way to the Pacific, and that way people don't even need to go down to Panama to get their goods across, and they'll be able to cross more than what the Panama Canal does. Because if you've ever been to the Panama Canal, it's a process where the boat has to get lifted, then dropped, then lifted, then dropped. The train just can go nonstop. So if you're buying property in Mexico, that's a great place to buy property right now.
Dang. There we go.
Damn. Quintana Roo, vámonos.
No, what I was wanting to ask earlier, so I know you got some exciting stuff coming up. I believe you have a TED Talk that's at the end of this month, or was it earlier this month?
No, it is on the 29th in Texas. We're going to be in South Texas for a TED Talk. So they're going to record it. It'll probably go live on the TED Talk platform sometime in November, early December. And really what I'm talking about, it's going to be on leadership as well. I'm going to tell a little bit of my history like I told it today, but really on the things that I learned in that life. I think a lot of times we don't realize the things that we're learning are leadership attributes and leadership skills and things that people are reading big books on or going to classes with, like we grow up with that kind of stuff. We're automatic leaders. A lot of times we get things like, oh, I hate it because my sisters and my brothers, they always bring me their problems. Or los compadre y la comadre, they're always telling me their problems. Why do people bring you their problems? Because they see you as a leader. Because they see that you bring something to the table. So you have problem-solving skills. You have negotiator skills. Those are all things that people have to go to school to learn. Sometimes, too, like when we were kids and somebody, like you would hurt somebody or something, somebody's feelings, nosotros respondemos con un corazón bien tierno. That's emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
You have to read a book. You have to learn about stuff like that. So my TED Talk is about the things, the struggles that we had in life. What are the leadership skills that we can have learned from that? And how do you apply them in the boardroom? Because even the stuff I learned in the guys, even the stuff I learned in jail, like I've applied it in the boardroom and I've been very, very successful with it.
Yeah. I think it's 100% correct. I think everything, there's levels, right? So it's lo mismo. It doesn't matter you're here or over there. It's just, it's they call it corporate talk or corporate America. ¿Cómo es? ¿Cómo lo vas a trascender para llegar a ese nivel, verdad? Because at the end of the day, you're just a person, that same person that has, ideas and everything. People that are up here are the same people. It's just how do you get that in the knowledge and the skill, and how do you apply the skill set y todo eso. So, man, I love it. I like it. So.
Yeah. Well, and we worry so much because we see somebody with the title and we're like, yo no me lo merezco, or yo no puedo hacer eso, and we get quiet. It's like, why? Wow, you're fucking awesome. Yeah. You're amazing. You're beautiful, dude. You have great food. You have great taste. You'll be able to do stuff. You make decisions. You've been a leader in your family, and you haven't had the resources that those people have. The one thing that we do have is persistence. Like nosotros, and my dad would always, I still say this. My dad always says, échale chingazos, pelón. Échale chingazos. And that's the one thing that we do really, really well. We will fight and fight and fight no matter how many times we get down. So that is our fucking superpower, man.
And that's what I love about our culture, because, it's exactly right. Es eso. Ahora lo combinas con todo lo demás y olvídate. You know? It's a powerhouse, dude.
100%. So. And once we get united behind that, and we understand now we have political power, we have principle and power because we make money, we can make decisions, and we support each other. And don't get me wrong, we're not creating something that's exclusive. We're inclusive of us. So, look, if we build a table, it's not like we only want Mexicans at the table. We want everybody at the fucking table. Our table is better because our table allows everybody to sit there. We're going to have better food for sure, but our table is going to be open to everybody. So it's not about excluding anyone. It's about including us.
Can you talk about what you have that's going on that's exciting besides the TED Talk? I know you talked a little bit about the organization that you and your wife created and are running. And what else you got going on that people can look forward to?
Absolutely. So I just did a talk at Washington State University for the Clackamas Youth Leadership Conference. And that was overcoming cultural insecurities as Latinos, because it's a Latino youth leadership organization. So I did a talk there. We also started latinosinleadership.org. It's a website where you can go in there, and we do business consulting, we do individual consulting, we do one-on-ones. If you need mentorships and stuff like that, let's talk about it. You can look up the website. You can also send me an email, pedro@latinosinleadership.org as well, just to talk about stuff. Guys, and like I said, don't be afraid to make movements. Don't be afraid to do different things as well. My wife started the Oregon Conferences for Women. It's an organization that's founded by 3 Latinas. It's all inclusive, so everybody shows up. They have an event coming up November 17th, right? 16th, November 16th, where they're going to talk a little bit about mentorship and finding your right type of mentors and stuff like that. And that's something my beautiful wife started on her own, but she's already got a lot of following, a lot of stuff. It's the Oregon Conferences for Women, or OCW. We believe in building community. Everywhere that we go, whether we're in Texas, Guatemala, wherever we're living at, we want to build community. We're very big believers, and to those that much is given, much is expected. So we need to give back, right? And my dad always said, hey, tú habla porque no puede hablar. Tú habla por el calladito. So I take that to heart. I really want to do, and I want to help out our community. But I want to help out anybody if you reach out your hand, my hand will be there. I give you my word on that. I will always be kind and considerate to you, regardless of anything else. if you're approaching the right way and with a humble heart. So we got to be open to that. So yeah, we got a lot of stuff going on. We hope to blow it up in the Pacific Northwest. We want to get bigger, more events. Please follow Oregon Conferences for Women. Follow LatinosInLeadership.org. We're also just starting the Instagram page. And don't forget about Pisteando con Don Pedro.
Let's go.
There you
Another
go.
one. You can look at my personal Instagram too, Pedro Villagran.
There we go.
Yes.
And did you have any last questions?
No.
I have one last question. Your last meal. You can't pick mom's food.
Okay.
You can't pick the wife's food.
Mhm.
It has to be either Texan food or California food. What are you eating?
Oh, dude, what a terrible question. I landed in front of my wife too. It's like, can I get a mix of
No. No combo
I
plates
know,
here.
I know. I'm eating chicharrón. That's what I'm eating. Chicharrón is my favorite.
That's a snack.
No,
That's not food.
No. I'm eating like chicharrón carnudo, like the whole chicharrón wrapped in the tortilla con guacamole, like the big, thick
okay.
piece, like pork belly.
Who makes it better? California people or Texans?
Answer that, 'cause you know the answer.
You said you know the answer.
Go with the French people.
I like chicharrón prensado, which is very different.
Oh, dude, you should be a politician, man.
I like chicharrón prensado, and there's a place in South Texas called Güeros that does
Okay.
amazing chicharrón prensado, the best I've ever had. If somebody can guide me to somewhere else here in the local area that does chicharrón prensado at that same level or better, I am all ears. Please reach out to me. I would love to go try it out.
There you go, guys. Texans have better food than Californians. Let's go.
Better
you.
seafood in California.
Thank
All right.
you, Pedro.
Thank you, guys.
Gracias. Adiós.
Gracias.